Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And next up will be the best reporter you've ever run across, Mr. Ray Hanania.
And I am Ray Hanania, and I had a good source when I was at Chicago City Hall. Should I tell him who it was, Bill?
Oh, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Let's not. Although I'm sure now they're going to be suspicious.
I, I'm
Um,
sure
this
you
is
already know.
this is Two Guys on Politics, and I am Ray Hanania. This is December 5th, 2024, Season 3, Episode 38. And we got three topics kind of touching on Trump's cabinet, the status of some of them coming and going. They're a revolving door before they even actually get nominated and approved by, confirmed by was it Congress, right? Does Congress or the Senate? That
It's just the Senate.
The Senate, sorry, the Senate.
Poor congressmen don't have anything to say about it.
And then Biden's son, Hunter Biden, the pardon that he gave him, after saying he wasn't going to pardon him. And now he did, although I guess Biden could say he didn't remember ever saying that he wasn't going to pardon him. That would be a good defense, I think. And the Ukraine war. What the heck is happening there? I don't know. So Trump's cabinet, what's going on with that? Obviously, just making nominations, right?
Well, he's making nominations, and I think he's deliberately making nominations that he knows are not going to be confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I cannot believe he could possibly make so many mistakes. I think he wants to show his appreciation to these loyal supporters by nominating them to these very high positions in the federal government. But the people he nominates, it's incredible the number of flaws they had. I didn't think there could be a worse nomination than he had for the Department of Justice. Okay. But I think he topped himself by the guy he's named for the FBI. Now, the guy he named for the FBI has said on a number of occasions, when Trump nominates me to run the FBI, the first thing I'm going to do is clean out everybody in the Washington headquarters of the FBI, send them out into the country, and find all those corrupt people who have said bad things about President Trump. And we're going to arrest them. Now, we don't know if it'll be for criminal or for civil penalties, but we're going to get all of them. Now, is that the kind of guy you want running the FBI? I don't think so.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of J. Edgar Hoover, if you ask me. That sounds like his temperament when he was the head of the FBI. He hated so many people and kept dossiers on everybody that he disliked.
But he did not. He didn't
publicly say it. He didn't say it publicly. You're right.
Exactly.
Is the crime that this nominee to head the FBI is saying it publicly, or is he just being honest? I mean, wouldn't you rather know rather than him get appointed, not say anything stupid, and then start doing all that stuff?
I'm happy he's saying that because I don't see how the senators ever confirm him for that position, having had that public attitude. Now, the guy that they have for the Secretary of Defense, so far, he's been accused of being a womanizer.
Hegseth, right? Pete Hegseth?
Yes.
Pete Hegseth?
He has been accused of having a lot of financial problems.
Okay.
He's been accused of being an alcoholic. I just heard today a guy saying that in his last position, he used to get so drunk by noontime that they had to carry him to his room to sleep it off.
Now, I knew a reporter like that, Bill, a long time ago when I covered City Hall. Before I got there, the police used to drive him home. He got so drunk after covering City Hall. And this guy, Hegseth, was a Fox News personality, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Absolutely. Yes.
And an Army National Guard veteran, I think, right?
Well, I think he served in the Middle East in one of those wars that we've had over there in the last 5 or 6 years.
In some position, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then Marco Rubio, though, I don't agree with Marco Rubio, but He's the lead state, to head the State Department, right?
He's as clean as a whistle, Marco Rubio. He's like
He's as clean as a Cuban cigar.
Well, his family left without any cigars.
That's true.
I think he's going to make it.
Yeah.
I now hear that our mutual good friend, the man we both supported at one time for the presidency, RFK Jr., sounds like he's going to be in trouble also.
All the way with RFK.
I'm rather sorry to hear that, because I would like to see him get involved in medical situation in this country, because I think we need someone in that position to take a hard look at what's going on in the medical field. Every time I pick up a prescription at Jewel, Osco, there's always some old person. I say old person, they're probably younger than me, but they look older than me, but they don't have enough money really to pay for the prescription. They have to go back home, try to find some more money, come back to pay for their prescription. When they do get it, the pharmacist tells me they only wind up taking it every other day instead of every day. That's a terrible situation for a country as rich as we are, to have people living here who can't afford their prescriptions and who cannot take the prescription every day because they simply could not afford to buy any additional medication.
That's a horrible way to treat seniors too. I mean, the worst, especially when they get older. Things need to be simplified. My wife asked me why I didn't want to retire. I said, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to keep my regular health care insurance because I don't want to get into the confusion of Medicare. When you see 50 commercials on TV, not just 30-second or 60-second commercials, but 30-minute infomercials trying to get you to sign up, to these different Medicare plans, right away they're making a fortune off I'm going to say ignorance, but not in a mean way, of the senior population, because it's so complex. I don't know which one I would go through. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to stay with my regular health insurance as long as I can, and heck with retirement. Why should I retire and then end up like that?
I mean, being a reporter and a columnist, I don't think you've ever worked, so why should you retire?
That's true. I don't build houses and I don't lift bricks.
Right.
So, and people scream at me now. I mean, can you imagine when I can't pay my bills, how they're going to be screaming at me for other reasons? I don't need the headache. But Robert F. Kennedy, you're right.
I hope Kennedy makes it, because I think he'll shake the system. He's a little strange at times, but I think he would be good to put in there and shake up the system.
Isn't every old person a little strange at times, though? Let's be honest.
Now, when I get to be an old person, I'll let you know. After all, I'll only be 87 on December 22nd.
Wow. Well, seriously, happy birthday, Bill.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
I want to get back to Trump's appointment, though.
Go ahead.
I think he's doing this to make some of his strong supporters happy with him, but he knows they're not going to pass. And he's coming up with this woman that he has for the Justice Department. She's a loyalist for Trump, but she's an excellent choice. Everyone I hear talking about her has high praise for her. Democrats, Republicans.
Is that the National Intelligence Director, Tulsi Gabbard, or
no? This is the woman.
The Attorney General. Attorney General.
Yes.
Pam Bondi.
Right. Exactly.
She was the former Florida Attorney General, I guess, right? She seems smart. I've seen her on TV. She knows how to talk.
Yes, she does. Absolutely.
And but what about Tulsi Gabbard? She's very controversial. Until now, I didn't really think she was very controversial, but apparently the media is having hay with every appointment that he makes. Why is it that, listen, somebody told me, I was doing something on the Middle East. I talked to these, I did for my radio show in the Middle East. I talked to the people that led the Abandon Biden group. And I said, everybody's blaming you, abandoned Biden for electing Trump. And he said, listen, there was no difference between Biden, Harris, or Trump. The only real difference is that when Biden and Harris were in charge, they did everything that Trump said he's going to do, but the media never questioned them because the media loved them. Now that Trump is in office, it's better for us because everything Trump says he's going to do, the media takes him on and challenges him. So we're really better off having Trump. We're going to hear about stuff that we didn't hear about when Biden and Harris were running the country. So I thought, okay, that I never thought of it that way. It's an interesting perspective.
No, I've never thought of it that way either. I don't know. What about Kelsey? What's her name?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. What do you think of her?
I don't know. She's a former congresswoman. I thought she was pretty decent for a while, but she's going to have, she had some military experience in the, and anybody in the military, I think I'd give them an opportunity to try to do stuff. She's going to head the national intelligence, but you got to understand that these people that they appoint, in my opinion, are taking over bureaucracies that are entrenched. I know Trump calls it the swamp, but the Democrats are going to call it their own version of the swamp too. Probably they'll come up with another word, maybe the saloon they'll call it instead of swamp. But you head up these agencies, and you're subject to the employees that have been working there for years. So you're going to be influenced hugely, I think, by them. I'm not sure they create that much damage, but they will create headlines with the media, right? Whatever they say will become a headline.
Now, my son served in Congress with the one that we were just talking about, the woman.
Tulsi?
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard? What did he think of her?
He says she is an extremely nice person, very easy to get along with, very down to earth, very intelligent. But he says she served in the Middle East, I think in, was it Afghanistan or one of those Middle Eastern wars? Not
probably
Gaza.
Iraq, maybe Iraq.
Maybe Iraq, yes.
Yeah.
Supposedly she is suffering from, the post syndrome.
Traumatic.
Now,
right.
My son has never witnessed that, but he has been told that by some of her close friends. He says he doesn't know what to believe. His personal observation is she's smart, she's knowledgeable about intelligence, and he thinks she would do a good job. But there are some doubts about her. Have you heard anything recently about her?
No, only that the media hates her. The media pretty much hates everybody Trump has appointed, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
I don't know if there's a love for any of them. The one guy that I did meet and I know pretty well is the guy that, of course, now my senior moment, Dr. Mehmet Oz. I met Dr. Oz. I had great conversations with him. He is a smart guy. And, they put him in charge of, medicine, I guess, or something like that. And I
know he's in charge of something. Where did you meet him?
I was in the Middle East. I'm sorry. I was covering a Middle East event in Florida in February. And he seemed like a smart guy. I got a chance to talk to him, but I guess that he's a physician and a TV presenter, and a cardiographic surgeon. And he and I were talking about, all these issues. He just really impressed me. He was smart. I've talked to him since then, but he's been told that they can't talk about their nominations. They have to wait till they're actually nominated. Otherwise, I would do a story with them. But he's being criticized, because he was on TV, kind of like Oprah Winfrey, where she hawks things to make money. He was hawking stuff, pills and things that would help, you to get better. And the media says that the most of those were scams. And that, he's going to run Medicare and Medicaid for Trump if he gets approved. but he's talked about, that Ozempic, which everybody uses for weight loss.
Yes.
I mean, I know it's for um geez, what is it?
No,
Ozempic is for the sugar, when you have a sugar problem. What is that?
diabetes. Diabetes.
Diabetes. I'm lucky that I'm a healthy person. I have no. I did have cancer, but I beat it a long time ago, and I haven't had a problem since. But Ozempic is for diabetes, but most people use it to lose weight, and he thinks that it's important. He thinks it's a great weight loss medicine. So the media is jumping all over him over that.
Does he have stock in it?
He might, he might, for all I know. I don't know, but who doesn't? Bill Clinton and the Whitewater scandal and all that. There were interests there. Nobody cared about that. So, I
Yeah.
just care about what's good for me with Medicare and Medicaid. I would love to see Mehmet Oz come in there, clean up the whole place. Why don't we just have one Medicare policy, one Medicare system, one healthcare system where everybody gets the best, insurance and discounts and drugs. And we don't have to make a choice like we're at the casino gambling to
I
see
agree.
which one is better.
Do you think if Trump nominated Oprah for some executive position, the news media would turn against her then?
Yes, they would.
Okay.
Listen, Liz Cheney, she turned around by attacking Trump. She suddenly became the darling of the media. And she was just a horrible person in Congress, according to some people. And I never liked her. But yeah, if you embrace Biden, the media loves you. So I think it would, yeah, it would make a difference.
That's up until he pardoned his son. When he pardoned his son, the media turned against him totally and completely.
Well, let's talk about that, because why do you think the media turned against him? Because of the way he did it, or the fact that he pardoned him?
Well, I don't think they really have any trouble with him pardoning his son. I think
Right.
their problem is that he said his son was unjustly persecuted by
Yeah.
the Justice Department, that it was corrupt in what they did to his son. Now, who has
Yeah.
been saying that about the Justice Department for the last 5 or 6 or 7 years? One
Trump.
Donald J. Trump, right?
Yes.
So
So
what Biden did was give credence to everything that Trump has said about the corrupt Justice Department and the corrupt FBI. That's why the news media, and that's why so many Democrats have turned against Biden, because he just, in essence, said, Trump's right. They're corrupt. Look at what they did to my son. I've got to pardon them. You know,
so go ahead.
what would be really good for this country? I know it'll never happen. But if Joe Biden would pardon Donald Trump for everything that he's been convicted of or that he's been brought to trial, just pardon him, get it off the books, and make sure that the pardon would not allow any future Democratic administrations to go after him. I think that would do a great deal to
Yeah.
heal this country and to make the Trump supporters a little bit more willing to accept, what Democrats might say. They're willing to accept a more bipartisan approach towards things.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time reading up on Hunter Biden. There was a reporter whose father I knew ran the Chicago Sun-Times when I was there in 1985 to 1992, and his daughter is writing at the New York Post, which is really a far right wing publication. But she did some phenomenal stories about what Hunter Biden had done, that laptop controversy. And it was interesting because the media intentionally avoided covering that story. They turned it into like these were rumors and political propaganda. But he was making money hand over fist dealing with China, the Ukrainian energy company, Burisma, which is one reason why I think Trump really doesn't like Ukraine, because it's associated with Hunter Biden. That laptop had pictures of him on drug binges, using cocaine. It was just his legal issues. I think he pled guilty to a tax charge, I think, last year.
Yes, he did.
So it's, I really always wanted to know what the truth was to that, but the media covered it up. The media blocked it. So to me, the media, they're very hypocritical when, even if they criticize Biden, as you pointed out before the show, right? What was Mayor Richard J. Daley's line?
If you can't help your son, who can you help?
Exactly. So if you can't help your son, you can't help the rest of the country.
Right,
So,
exactly.
and listen, it's not like Biden or even Trump have done anything outrageous that hasn't been done before. We saw Barack Obama. I think they said that Obama had nearly 2,000 clemencies and pardons, the highest number of pardons of any president. And Bill Clinton, he pardoned his partners in that Whitewater scandal that we never got to find out what the truth was on that when he was president. That Susan McDougal, I think, was her name. And he pardoned a Puerto Rican national terrorist group, the FALN, and their members, a billionaire financier who really just was horrible, that Mark Rich, I think. So I was reading through these, and I'm going, oh my God, this media hypocrisy is terrible, isn't it?
President Ford pardoned somebody too.
Nixon. Didn't he pardon Nixon, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he did.
I think his pardon was for present crimes and future crimes. So Nixon could have held up a bank and robbed it for $1 million
afterwards
and walked out, and he wouldn't have been prosecuted because he's already been pardoned for it. It's ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. That's the same kind of pardon that Hunter got.
Yeah, it's he got so to me, the problem here is the news media. I really, I'm a big critic of the news media, as you know, and everybody knows, because by twisting and distorting things, they take things out of context and make someone look good or make someone look bad, rather than looking at the facts of the case. So we're caught, trying to create a balance here. And in truth, every president does this. They have the power to do it. The Constitution gives them that right to do it. And they all do it in different ways. Presidents have pardoned criminals, murderers. I'm anticipating that Donald Trump is going to pardon, I would say, the majority of the people that were convicted in the January 6th protests, which, the critics call it insurrection. I don't know if he's going to get away with pardoning those that were, convicted of, killing people, the harshest penalties. But the majority of them were misdemeanors, and a lot of it was political, I felt. But there were some terrible people that were involved in that. And I don't know if I'd be in favor of that.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be in favor of that. But I really think that, you could prosecute Trump for inciting the insurrection of the Capitol. It's not going to happen, but I really believe it. He was the cause of it. He egged those people. I know
I disagree. Well, no, here I do. Listen, he did egg people into believing the election was stolen. He certainly made that case and made that argument.
Yes, he did.
And people have said other crazy things too before him. He's not the first president to say something crazy or believe something that nobody agreed with. But there were 60,000 to 100,000 people at that protest around Congress. And it was only about 1,000 that went off the deep end, breaking into Congress, going nuts. And they certainly deserve, to be prosecuted, those that hurt people or damaged property. But the majority of them, I think, had a right to protest what they believe was a stolen election. And I think if the media had been fair and objective about it, I think we would have found the truth that maybe that wasn't the case. But when they're so biased and you don't trust the media, I have to look at what Trump says and say, okay, maybe he's not 100% right, but there's got to be some substance to what he claims.
Well, Joe Biden just claimed the same thing, so maybe Trump is right.
Well, the only thing I can say about Biden is that he probably didn't remember that he vowed he would never pardon his son. So we got to give him that pass.
I've been waiting for you to say that, Ray.
All right. And now we have the Korean War taking place in Ukraine. And I was doing some research and I saw that, it was Clinton and Gorbachev, was it maybe 30 years ago that
I
that
think no, it was
no,
Putin
the guy before. What was the guy's name that got on the tank? Remember him?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he was the president. He was the mayor of Moscow, and then he became the whatever his title is, was president of Russia. He was the alcoholic.
Yes,
but
listen? I don't want to say aren't all presidents, all Russian presidents alcoholic. I don't know, but
Boris Yeltsin.
Boris Yeltsin. So Clinton and Boris Yeltsin, they denuclearized Ukraine and I think a couple other countries that were part of the Russian satellite system. They eliminated all the nukes. They moved all those nukes back to Russia, and now and guaranteed the safety of Ukraine back then. And now we look at it, and there's no guarantee. We did nothing. So do we live up to our word? It seems like we're so easy to just brush something off because, that was 30 years ago. Didn't mean anything. And it just seems, I feel bad for Ukraine because it looks like they're going to be the big victims of this election.
Well, what do you think is going to happen in Ukraine? You have any idea?
Well, I heard these stories about how Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, has suggested that if NATO accepts the Ukraine's existing territory that it controls as part of NATO, and then they can deal with the lands that the Russians took over this war that they started 3 years ago, that he might agree, to a ceasefire with Russia. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'd love to see Ukraine get into NATO because I don't trust the Russians.
Well, what do you think Putin would agree to something like that?
If it would give him an extra leg up on keeping the lands that he's stolen through war and conflict, I think he might.
Yeah, I think it's very possible that he might, because I think that he has to be very concerned about this war when he gets the big, powerful nation of North Korea to send him troops. It has to be humiliating for the president.
Has to be, isn't it?
Russian Empire, they have to ask the North Koreans for help in a war. That's
and that's crazy. That's scary because the North Koreans are nuts.
Yes, they are.
That's a cult. That's a cult, and I don't mean it in an ethnic or racial way, but the people in that country are in a cult, and they look up as the president there of North Korea, the son of this other tyrant who was there, like gods, and and they cry, when it's like, that it would be like they view that person like Jesus in their view. And now they sent 100,000 troops to fight in Russia. I hear they're not very good though. That's the rumors, the reports that are going around, but Russia is desperate for soldiers.
Yeah, I only read that it was 3,000. You read it was 100,000?
That it's up to 100,000 troops that they're going to send there. Now, why does Russia get to do everything it wants to do? But if we sent 2 American soldiers to Ukraine, it would be an act of war. He bombs every city in Ukraine, and then the Ukrainians bomb one city in Russia, and it's an act of war. It just, I don't know how we allowed that to be that way, but I am concerned about Trump, that he is going to compromise the Ukrainian rights in order to make it look like he's bringing peace to that region. And I think, acquiescing to Putin is a mistake. It's a sign of weakness, not strength. And it will create more problems down the road for us.
Well, do you think that the Ukraine can really defeat Russia in this war?
I think if we didn't have one arm tied behind their back the way we forced them, I think that this war would have ended a long time ago. The Russians would have taken a beating. I think it would have been a much worse war, but I think that this war would have ended 2 years ago. It would never have gone on more than a year, because I don't think the Russians would have tolerated, taking the beating that they've been giving to the Ukrainians with their missiles and their bombs and destroying cities,
Well,
the way the Russians are doing it.
Why do you think that we have not permitted the Ukrainians to use all the super weapons that we have, the long range missiles and the special fighter planes? Why have we withheld almost all of that stuff from them up until very recently?
Well, I mean, as we've talked about in the past, I think, Biden, as smart as he may have been years ago and tough and brilliant, he's been a weak president. And I think it was weakness on our part that we were afraid of what would happen. If you're going to stop a war, you can't be afraid of getting into a war. To stop a bully, you have to be strong enough to stand up to the bully. You
That's
can't
true.
make it look like, hey, bully, what if we do this? The bully's just going to become a bigger bully. And I think that's what Russia's become. And now he's got the advantage to say, oh, suddenly Biden decides that he's going to allow Ukraine to use these missiles against Russian targets. We should have allowed that 3 years ago. And I bet that, how many destructive missiles in Russia would the Russians tolerate had we allowed that to happen 3 years ago? It would have been a horrible situation. And I think the people might have forced Putin to step down, but we're in a mess today.
Well, I think that the Biden administration only gave enough weapons to the Ukraine to sort of fight a stalemate with the Russians so that it could bleed the Russians both financially and with manpower. And of course, it's bleeding the Ukrainians also. But I think we use the Ukraine, to hurt the Russians without giving the Ukraine the weapons to really win this war. And I think that is, a great sin upon the Biden administration.
Yeah, and I also worry about, can NATO stick together? Because the NATO nations are all, putting up money and resources. They're paying more they used to get their oil from Russia. They don't get as much, but they still got to pay more. There's these intertwining relationships, and some of these NATO nations, I think, are, hurting as a result of this. And NATO may lose some of these nations, like that Ceausescu, the guy that's running there in I can't think of the country there. So many of them. I remember his relative that he was a horrible person, but Ceausescu, and it worries me that these smaller nations are going to start breaking from NATO, and NATO is going to look weak. The first country that breaks from NATO is going to just make the entire organization look like it's not as strong as it was. We're going to be dragging down their power, and I think that that's the big threat that we have to worry about. Because without NATO, the Putin would have probably taken over every one of those countries again that were in the satellite of the Soviet Union 30 years ago, when it collapsed in the 80s.
I think that was his goal, but based upon the Russians' poor performance in Ukraine, I don't think they're capable of doing that. They couldn't beat the Ukrainians. I don't see how they're going to, take on a few more of those countries like Poland and then Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, those countries. And there's, a number of others in the old Balkans area that were one time part of the Soviet Empire. I think that Trump, if he is strong enough with Putin, has the ability to end this war. And I hope he does so.
Well, it's a terrible end to the war if Putin gets away with keeping all that land that he occupied through force. And that's not going to end the conflict. That's just going to postpone it for a few, more generations maybe, but it'll get worse. I certainly don't think the United States should concede any land to Mexico or Canada. If we got into a conflict with them, I would hope we'd go back and fight to keep the land that we stole from them in the first place, right? We're not giving them back.
We didn't steal any land from them, please. Ray.
I don't know, I seem to remember down in the Alamo and all that, but
those were Americans that were fighting in the Alamo against Santa Anna, that head of Mexico.
They were in Mexico, though, Mexican territory at the time.
I have something for you, Ray.
Go ahead.
From the Red River to the Rio Grande, Texas will be free.
Was that the original MAGA, slogan?
No, I was watching a movie the other day, and this guy crossed over the Red River, and he said he's now in Texas.
Was it John Wayne?
No, it wasn't John Wayne. No, it was Joel McCrae. Joel McCrae.
Wow.
And he didn't say anything about, from the Red River to the Rio Grande, but I thought of that. That was that would have been a good motto for the Texans, from the Red River to the Rio Grande, Texas will be free.
Well, as long as Israel's not involved, they won't call it anti-Semitic, because if you say from the river to the sea, they even want to say that a keffiyeh that the Arabs wear on their heads is a form of anti-Semitism, but it's not. All right, Bill. Anyway, I think we've had enough fun with these topics today. But overall, I am still worried about Ukraine. I think that's the biggest concern I have moving forward.
Well, I'm worried about the United States of America. I just am not. I am not convinced that Trump is going to be a reasonable, rational president. I hope he is. I think there are signs that tell me he will, as long as he's not really that supportive of some of these ridiculous nominees he's made for high positions in the federal government. We'll just have to wait and see.
All right. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. Raymond,
we'll talk to you next week, everybody.